So now we're going to get an insider's view on private auctions from Jeanine Niyonzima-Aroian, founder of JNP Coffee, who hosted its first private auction in December of 2022. In her presentation, she will address some of the common questions about auctions that will be particularly interesting to anyone who's considering this channel for coffee sales. For those that haven't met Jeanine, she's a strong advocate for women coffee farmers in Burundi, and she's committed to educating Burundi's people for the economic empowerment of self-sustaining coffee communities. She's also a current SCA board member and has been very involved in the SCA's US chapter. But right now, she's living in Berlin. Great to have you, Jeanine.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. I'm very happy to be here. And hello, everyone. This is Jeanine Niyonzima-Aroian from JNP Coffee. And today I'm going to be sharing with you what are the things you need to consider before you do a private auction. Before I go into the private auction itself, I want to let you know that we did this private auction a year from now. And the specific interest and focus was on a small, tiny country called Burundi that's located in Central East Africa, with a population about 13 million, with about 90% of the population living in rural area, and about 80% of them who are in the agriculture sector, and about 51% are women who mainly tend for the coffees, work in the coffee, pick the coffees, but not always are the one who actually deliver the coffees at the windmills. And it's also a very young country. About 41% of the population is under the age of 15. So a lot of opportunities and work to do in Burundi. And I would dive into why we actually got into this private auction first and foremost. The interest for us to get into this private auction started with a drive to try to promote more of the women coffees, and also it's a drive to try to find a way where we can actually be able to bring more money, for the farmers. We have kind of like three pillars that we kind of focus on in our country: is the people, the place, because it's a very exceptional place that produces exceptional coffees that most people don't know about. And of course, as I said, the people who also produce, the coffee. We kind of felt like that was kind of lacked, and we felt like if we can actually just use this auction as a way to bring attention to the women produced coffees, and also be able to bring more money for the farmers, we'll be very successful. And then through the discussion with the people who were organizing or have organized a private auction before, we were actually told that we need to bring other coffees other than just the women produced coffee. So we then end up by working on an extended profile of different coffees that come from different region within Burundi that also provide different terroir to be able to expose the different coffees from Burundi, different processes from Burundi, and it was quite an exciting project. But I am going to speak a little more into it by telling you, then again, what some of the main reasons that we decided to undertake on this project. One was visibility of the Burundi coffees, but also the visibility of the exceptional work and products that came from women producers in Burundi, and also the ability to actually be able to have the higher pricing that private auctions usually tend to bring to coffees. And also be able to expand our circle of connections with producers, but also with buyers from around the world, and also experiencing that high level marketing work that usually you're not able to experience in other mode of communication. So some of the things that we experienced doing this private auction, there are some advantages and disadvantages as everyone else would expect, but we wanted to share this with those who are considering to actually do a private auction, so they can go into this a little bit informed and knowing what this is all about. In terms of what are the advantages, is what we find out for us anyway. We were able to work with some amazing team members across the world. We had team members from Europe, from as well Middle East, as well as Asia, as well as Latin America, that we're able to work with to create this platform and work on this platform. We also had an opportunity actually to be able to revamp our marketing collateral to be able to use it not only just for this purpose, but also to be able to use it in other purpose in the future. And because it was an online private auction, we were able to hold this auction globally, but also we had an opportunity to actually be able to do the cuppings prior to the auction at many locations almost at the same time. Another advantage was obviously to be able to expose and to be able to provide this exposure to the world, this small, tiny country that located in the central part of Africa, that's landlocked, that most people don't even know about. Actually, a lot of people don't even know that it produces some exceptional coffees because our coffees are not as known as the coffee from Kenya or Ethiopia. So this platform also created the opportunities for us to be able to provide that exposure that's very unique. That most other countries probably don't have a chance to have as small countries like the country of Burundi. We were also able to, as I had mentioned earlier, to have access to clients that we're actually not able to be able to have access with in general, because there are certain clientele that really specifically look for private auctions. They are, driven by the private auctions, and they are looking for those exceptional coffees that they can buy on the private auction platform, because most of those coffee that we were able to present on this platform were very unique, that only those who participate in those auctions can be able to have access to than the general public that we usually would buy our coffee in a normal route of how people trade and buy coffees, from exporters and importers. Some of the things that we learned that were quite a challenge was one that's mostly critical that I want to share with all of you is actually really the time. It took us a tremendous amount of time to be able to prepare for this auction, to be able to put this auction together. The resources we're able to tap into to be able to have a successful auction was at a magnitude that I had not imagined, before. So we had so many people, not only all our team members were involved in the auction, but also we had to tap into some experts from around the globe to get involved into this auction. So because of that, the cost of holding this private auction was significantly expensive than we had actually anticipated. We had a budget to do this private auction, but it ended up by being 2 times more expensive than what we had anticipated, which was quite a challenge. Another thing that we did not think about when we were doing this auction was the logistic part that ended up by being even more challenging and continuous than we had anticipated even after the auction. Moving, if you can imagine, just moving containers from a landlocked country is very challenging, let alone actually moving 30 kgs, 60 kgs, 90 kgs to the world or around the world from a landlocked country like Burundi, where you don't have so much ability in terms of consolidating, shipments, because you have to deal with just this one small little 30 kgs, 60 kgs lots that you have to move around the globe. So that was quite challenging. And we still are talking about this as of today. The logistic is one of the big pieces that you cannot plan enough for when you do a private auction like the one that we end up by working on. So what are the lessons that we learned? What did we learn from this private auction that then again want to share with all of you is the partnership. Partnership are very key. Who you partner with is very important. Do your homework in terms of who you want to partner to actually bring your private auction on the platform. We did work with a number of people around the world to be able to have this auction. The partners that we're able to bring on, as I had mentioned, we work with some companies in Europe, we work with some companies in Latin America, to be able to bring this platform forward. We also work with some company in the US, but really doing some scrutinities and in terms of who are you going to be working with is very critical and very important as we find out and discover later on. Make sure that you do your due diligence and to try to ask others who've done some private auctions, in terms of, who do they use and where do they go, and also how much did it cost them to be able to undertake such a project. Communication is very key. One of the things that we did during this private auction, we were on the talk on a regular basis, on a weekly basis with our team members to try to bring this forward. Plan ahead. You can never plan ahead, with this private auction, actually, maybe with anything else that of this magnitude. So I would say plan at least like 6 months ahead if you're going to be able to undertake this project at the minimum. One of the other things that we also learned during this process was the buyers who are interested into this private auction, they were very much looking into uniqueness and special processing. They're always looking for innovation. What is something that's different, that's new, that's fashionable, that is going on into this world of specialty coffee that they can tap into. And also the ability to actually be able to have those coffee and be the only one that have those coffees. Another piece that we also were able to discover that of great value was the fact that there are different markets for different coffees. There are some coffees that we could not sell in a certain market. We're able to actually be able to move in different markets because of the preferences. And as I had mentioned earlier, I think the values are very different from different markets as well, not only in terms of like what type of coffees, but also what they value in the coffees and even what they value in your company. So we did get to learn a lot from the different clients in terms of what they are coming to buy coffee from us and why. So that was a very big takeaway that I wanted to kind of share with all of those who are considering using this platform as a way to market and move your coffees. So in the sum is line up your partners strategically, do your due diligence, take time to really find the right partners. And do also identify some of the potential challenges that you may be able to encounter as you get into this, and then prepare ways to be able to tackle the challenges as they come along. And prepare, the worst case scenario in terms of especially of how much it's going to cost you to be able to run this auction. And for sure, celebrate the result, because there are going to be some success that you need to be able to celebrate at the end and recognize your team and also the lesson learned from such an undergoing project. So I want to thank you for your time. And if you want to learn about who we are and what we do and what we are providing around the world on these exceptional coffees and why they matter for us, you can check us on our website anytime at jnpcoffee.com, and feel free to reach out. And if there's anything else I can answer for you, I'm here for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeanine.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that presentation.
You're very, very much welcome.
And while you were talking, my very simple question occurred to me, which was, I was just curious whether this was the first auction you participated in, or did you have experience putting coffees into auctions previously?
No, this was the first auction I actually ever participated in. I mean, as a company. Yeah. But in terms of a very good question, though. But in terms of auction, actually, my first kind of how we kind of got to get known. I started this business in 2012. As I think I might have mentioned earlier. If not, I'm mentioning it now. But really, kind of like the way I actually started into this business was actually a relative of mine who wanted to be in coffee, who came to me and say, "Hey, I know you have a background in marketing, and I know that you live in the U.S., work in the U.S., you worked globally. I have this beautiful product that I want to take to the market, and I don't know how to do it. Can you help me?" So So that was in 2012. And as a matter of fact, I turned around to him. I was not even in coffee, and I said, I don't think I can help you. And I said, I got so many things that I'm doing. I'm in telecommunication. I have a nonprofit that I'm running, and I'm about to have 2 little children. There is no way I can help you. But he really begged me. He said, and I went back to my husband and I said, this kid has actually really seems like he has some potential, and I'm helping all the people that I don't know in Burundi, the nonprofits. Why not help him? And long story short, we ended up by deciding that something has to come off my plate, and what came off my plate was actually my consulting and telecommunication, and I got into coffee. But the reason I'm telling you this, 2 years later, helping him and working with him, I helped him get into the Cup of Excellence competition, and then he won #1 at the Cup of Excellence. And I just actually remember getting a phone call from a friend of mine who just happened to be there on the jury. He said, and he was just screaming on the phone, and he was in Burundi. I was not even in Burundi. And he said, he won. And I said, what do you mean? He said, he won. And I said, what do you mean? He won the Cup of Excellence. He's #1. His coffee was #1 at the Cup of Excellence. But anyway, so that was my first participation into the auction.
That's a great
not
story.
Planned,
Yeah,
not planned, but
yeah.
So anyway, but his coffee actually ended up by trading at a very high price, in the marketplace at that time, and then eventually how it is with a Cup of Excellence. Eventually, someone else is going to come and beat that price. But that was my first exposure, I guess, to an auction, and
As I said, that's a great story, and I think it's also a great example of one of the the reasons that competitions are so powerful is because it can be, for the person, your friend who won or your relative who won, for the buyer that you were talking to, for you as someone who helped out, it's this really concrete representation of the promise of higher quality coffee, higher value coffee, and it's exhilarating and reminds everyone, why we do this.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So I was going to ask one more question, which was, I was curious about the farmers that you work with, since that's such a big part of your identity as a coffee company, is these farmers, and what their impressions were of the auction. Does it kind of change how the farmers that know you see you, because you have this alternative sales channel, or you're doing something that's innovative and different?
Yes and no. So in other words, yes and no, because I think that, one thing that was for us very disappointing was actually the cost of the auction. I think that the cost of the auction was just like way significantly expensive than we had anticipated. So the luxury about thinking we were going to actually get more money from the auction was not really what we ended up by having as a result. But it actually ended up by being like a big marketing expense for the company than anything else. So because of that, I think that, for us, I don't think that we celebrated the way we want to celebrate it, except that I think in the long term, yes, we got to know, we already kind of have a lot of, farmers behind us who always want to work with us, who are now working with us, are always knocking on the door. There's a lot of them that got to kind of like know us even more because of the private auction we had to run. We had some sessions where we actually brought the farmers on when they can actually be able to interact and being asked questions, which was kind of like interesting as well for them, and getting that exposure. But in terms of like, as I said, when I went into this first was, okay, I think I have this women-produced coffee that I really want to kind of like expose and be able to see if I can get more funding for it, more money for the coffees, and be able to share even more the profits that we're already sharing with with our farmers in the form of premium that we're already doing. But really, the auction did not result in that very same effect as I think as I had expected it. As maybe it has been able to be seen for the Cup of Excellence, because for the Cup of Excellence, you get that big sum of money for that one lot, and it's a big chunk of money. But the person who's getting that big chunk of money for that coffee did not participate in the cost of the auction. Right? It's most of the Cup of Excellence that goes on around the world. The cost is actually taken over by the government, by the country. So it's it's an expense that the country takes on versus like maybe an individual company that takes on. So that's kind of like the I guess the difference. That's actually a very good question because I actually never got a chance to kind of explain this, in any other way. So that's a very good question. So I can be able to share that. So it becomes more kind of like a company expense as much as it was a promotion for the country and the promotion of the country of Burundi. But really, in this very specific, instance, was more the cost of an individual company versus actually the cost of a whole entire country.
Yeah, that is an important distinction to make about the difference between a private auction and a cup of excellence for anyone who's looking at them as, from the buyer's side, it may seem similar. From maybe even the individual farmer side, it may seem similar. But once you really get into the middle of it, it's quite different. Well, I think that a lot of what you said probably resonates with anyone who's done a private auction before, especially the fact that it ended up costing twice as much as you expected. And you are expecting already that it was going to be an investment for you. So I wonder, do you think that that is, based on what you know, is that sort of standard? Is it like something that people should plan on, that no matter how good their budget is, they should plan for unforeseen expenses?
Absolutely. So actually, this kind of got me a chance to also speak to others, who've done the similar private auction and who've conducted the same auction with some of the individuals and company that we work with to undertake this private auction, and they mimic the same learning in terms of how much really takes to undertake this private auction. You cannot really kind of like it's any other project to kind of get into, so you always get some, unexpected expenses. But the private auction, I think particularly was because it was our first time. I think it cost us more than I guess than what we had kind of, maybe wish they could cost us. So there was that part as well, because, we say, okay, we're going to put X, Y, amount of money on the side to actually be able to run this private auction. But at the end, as you start getting into it, oh, there is this that you need to actually have to pay for, or there is, how many boxes you actually have to prepare, because we actually had to prepare some sample boxes, beautiful sample boxes that we send around the world to different potential buyers, because when you do this private auction, there is the part about the promotion you have to do ahead of time, and we had to actually build those private auction. I mean, those boxes that were made up of the different lots we're going to be proposing, so we can sell them around the world. So we actually end up by making hundreds of them. And at the end of the day, because you don't know how many you're going to need, but they tell you this is how many you need to have. At the end of the day, we end up by using half of that. So that's a cost that was not anticipated, that we were going to be incurring, and it was there, and you cannot recycle that or get that money back. So that's one example that was kind of like a big surprise for us.
Yeah, yeah, that's so challenging. And like you said, there's no way to really uh, plan those quantities perfectly. I'm curious about the buyers that came in for the auction. Were they people that you had known before, maybe even had worked with, or were they people unknown to you? Or maybe what was the breakdown kind of percentage-wise, approximately?
Yeah, so 50-50. So we, on one end, we were very actually surprised, but some of our traditional clients wanted to be part of this auction, which, we were like, we are doing this auction for those who don't know us. But actually those who actually knew us and work with us were also interested to partake in the auction. So they can have also those unique lots. So we had as I say, 50% of our usual clients who participate in the auction as well. And then another 50% of clientele that we did not know about, and we didn't know them, that they know us. So it was kind of like a win-win situation. They get to know us and through this platform, and they participate, successfully. So that was very much appreciated, and it was great.
Yeah. And those who were new to you all, that 50%, have any of them, stayed in touch and then bought from you since then? I know that it's only been a year since you did this, so we're not talking like super long term, but have you stayed in touch with some
Correct.
of those buyers?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we did stay in touch with those buyers. We actually, you have to stay in touch with those buyers because once you actually get into this auction, then you have to ship those coffees to the buyers. So you are in touch continuously with those buyers because they have to get them. You have to make sure everything is okay, and then they come back. So a good number of them actually came back and say, hey, that was a great coffee. That was a great experience. We loved it. What else do you have? That you can provide us. What else can we look into? Because we buy more than just those, small little, uh,
Yeah.
size of coffees. So yes, we did have some clients that came back and we are selling them more than just like 30 kgs or 60 kgs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good to hear. Especially thinking long term and about how resource intensive these auctions are to put on. Um, do you anticipate that we'll see more private auctions in the coming years? As people learn more about the pros and cons of this, and is it something that you've been asked about in the year since you did the first one?
Yes, definitely. And there are also people facilitate these private auctions who have come about to say, hey, I can help you if you want to do another one in the future. And as I said, there are more of other I think companies out there who are looking to kind of do a private auction as a way to kind of get into in the market and get exposed to different markets that they usually don't have access to. But we are in a different time, I think in terms of like the economy overall. So I just we did not do another private auction, ourselves this year because obviously, the magnitude of the cost of this of the auction that we did last year. But also, I think there's a little bit of a change. I think I always said there's there's a change in the markets. It also depends where the economy is overall. I think that there's a little more of like tightness in expenses overall that I'm seeing across the board in terms of roasters, how much they also want to buy, for example, than they did the year before. There is the economy, as I said, it's a little bit challenging. The interest rate are also a little high. So there's different factors that I think that's probably might reduce the appetite about doing an auction maybe at this very moment but over the years might actually change because there is more small producers who are jumping on into private auctions and want to do a private auction to actually have the same exposures as we're looking for as well.
Yeah, it's a good point about the, changing economic condition being a really big factor playing into, the participation of buyers in these auctions. Well, Jeanine, thank you so much for being here with us, for sharing your experience. It's really meaningful to have people who are taking these kinds of risks and then coming on and honestly sharing both the benefits and the drawbacks of your experience to guide other people who are on a similar journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm always available if anyone else wants to ask any further question in regarding to a private auction. I can be reached at Jeanine@jnpcoffee.com or just go on our website at jnpcoffee.com, drop us an email, and I'll be in touch. Thanks again and good luck.